temporary technical delay there. I think we have everybody back. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is a filming permit application. I guess you talked about it last week?
Yes,
Okay.
the applicant is coming back with more information.
Okay. You have more information?
It's going to be reviewed and discussed next week.
Okay. Why is it on the agenda?
Because we thought last minute change.
Okay.
Yeah, we thought she was
Okay.
coming in, but then Amber communicated and.
Okay.
Jerry, just so you're aware, Amber had asked for a site plan and they gave us an overall site plan. We're just waiting for some more details on what they're actually going to do on the beach, which they physically described. I'm assuming the town board has seen that now, right?
Yes.
They were talking about maybe 2 pop-up tents. They give
I
us
saw that email. I just wasn't sure. Okay.
Right, so I believe everything's pretty much in place. The only thing that I wanted to be upfront with the board on is that if they had overflow parking, that time of year, I told them they could use Wade's Beach. There's no sticker requirement, other requirement. It's a public parking place during that time period. So if everything else is in order for the town board, I think on our end, we're pretty much set.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll hold off till next week on that one. Okay, next, this is what I thought we were starting with, the fees. Basically, the last group of fees we haven't addressed, we were looking to address user fees to offset taxes, is the planning board, the zoning board, and the application for dock permits. Stephen, you want to walk us through the planning board?
Yes. Okay, so there was an email from Ian to the town board, and I'll just read what he requests. I've also attached a proposed planning board fee schedule, which shows a 10% across the board increase to match the 2021 to 2023 CPI. We felt that the current wetlands fee of $250 to be far too low, not have an idea of when it was last updated. We are suggesting an increase to $750. So as far as planning board fees, they want to increase wetlands, as I said, from $250 to $750. And then do a 10% increase, across the board on all other fees. And then also add a renotice fee of $100. So if for some reason the hearing had to be renoticed due to an issue with the applicant, then it would be $100 extra. So for instance, a lot line modification would go from 1,100 to 1,200. And like a sketch plan for a minor subdivision would go from $130 plus $600 per lot to $145 plus $600 a lot. And the secret review fee would go from $660 to $725. So it's really a minor increase across the board, other than the wetlands increase from $250 to $750.
So we're going to 750, and I'm reading this right. I'm just going to say wetlands right here. 250 to 750. And what is this? East Hampton? Southold.
No.
Who's this? Southold, right?
Yeah,
They're 1250 for wetlands,
correct. And they did a significant jump.
from 250. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all right with that. I mean, I'm all right with that. Because these fees are normally paid, it's, what do I want to say? It's like a one-time deal. You don't come to the planning board every day for a wetlands permit.
Is it understood that if there's any technical fees that the applicant pays them,
Yeah, so that's in the code. So that has nothing to do with, these are flat generic fees.
but that's a given that they pay if there's engineering, reports that have to be done or any
Yes,
required.
yes, that's my understanding. But yeah, so if you're okay with that, I can go on to the zoning board.
Well, let's just play this out. So with the wetlands applications, if the planning board determines that they need something from a consultant or something, who pays for that?
That's what I'm saying. It's my understanding. Again, I don't represent that board on a day-to-day basis, but it's my understanding that they have within their jurisdiction the ability to have the applicant pay those fees.
So let's just make sure of that. So,
Okay.
in other words, we're gonna change the fees. Let's make sure that that's written in stone.
Right. And I'd like to come up a little bit more. I mean, do we want to have that discussion now? Or we just want to get an overview? You know, look at specifics? Or,
Well, it's really just limited to fees. That's what the agenda says.
no, I'm talking fees. I'm like
Okay.
saying, I think the application fee is still too low at $750. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or do we,
Yeah.
I'd love to know how many are a year.
Yeah.
So just looking at Southold, so their permit fee is $12.50.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are in addition, there's a filing fee of inspection fees. So it's $50 per inspection. So final inspection, silt fence inspection, like whatever inspections are required,
Yeah,
they charge an additional $50 per inspection.
right.
And then
Meg,
they're
who's doing those inspections here?
the building department.
All of it, the planning board doesn't go out and inspect, okay.
No, they do.
There's
So
some,
they do site visits. The
Yeah.
planning board does do site visits. And they have an engineer on staff who will go and do a site visit.
so again,
So
we don't have that at all, right?
that's not in there.
It might be nice to add site visit fees, nice to add, that's a very inexact statement. It would be nice to cover the cost of the site visits. Or,
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other two things the other thing I was going to ask about for the engineer and for their attorney over the course of the last 5 years or so, have those fees seen a steady increase because of the nature of the permits have been a little bit more complicated? Have we seen an uptick? Or has it just been strictly contractual where has been no additional monies spent? Because if we see significant monies increasing at both ends, I'm more inclined to go with BJ's suggestion. If not, I'm comfortable with the $750, but I think if the town is forking over more money, the planning board has to pay for these two professionals to go out and look. Might be a significant amount of money.
I think it's hard to do a look back for the last 4 years because COVID really
Right.
impacted
Yeah.
the planning board because the health department was moving so slowly. It was really meeting of very little, there was very little happening because everything was just held up at the health department.
Yep.
And then essentially we went and gave them the wetlands applications and that has added a lot to what they're doing now. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly.
My thing is, are they paid by contract or is it an hourly thing if they're hit with a lot of extra stuff?
It's hourly. Yeah.
So to answer Jerry's first question there, so the only consultant that might come according to the town code into the play is an environmental consultant. The town code establishes that the fees are to be incurred by the applicant. So that's paid by the applicant. If anything comes up during the hearing, do they request a engineering study, a structural engineer report or something like that, that is automatically incurred by the applicant.
Mhm.
They just ask, submit the study, so the applicant has to go hire their own consultant and bring the paper back.
Mhm.
The planning board doesn't go and hire these people on their own.
Okay,
Then as far as the fees goes, they do have an outside engineer and they do have an outside attorney. They have set fee per hour. The engineering fee, I believe, went up by a minimal increase once in the past 5 years.
Mhm.
And the attorney's fees are pretty steady. Right now, the current attorney also has a paralegal on hand, which her fees are a little lower.
Mhm.
So they trying, their fees were fairly steady because they always have the same, subdivision, lot line modification and such. So they were in certain bracket. But now they're doing the wetlands and the expenses are growing significantly, right? The engineer is involved since the very beginning, determining the completeness of the application. And mainly the attorney at the beginning had to do a lot of prep work, which means, prepare the resolutions and kind of structure how they're gonna do the resolutions moving forward, right? The resolution isn't always written from the scratch. It's gonna going off of the template more or less and modifying it for every application. So at the beginning, they have to develop the application, they have to develop some procedures. So that was the moment when the attorney spent a significant amount of the time developing all of these bases, right? So there was a significant cost that was included in it. There was a really large invoice of about $10,000 from Essex Hector. But moving forward, that will not happen, right? That was just the beginning, the base to build up on. So even the resolutions, like that is working on every resolutions, but now moving forward, she will have a paralegal on hand to help her with this, which again, the legal costs can go on. But in general, the fees will be higher.
And that's good information.
Good evening.
I guess the other question that I only have is that when the homeowner or the future homeowner hires an independent engineer or an attorney to do something, is it reputable? Is there any, what is the series of checks and balances to make sure that in fact the information that we're being given is accurate? I mean, the planning board, I guess, has an engineer and attorney to be able to decipher that, but, I get that as a series of checks and balances because I think there have been times in the past where we have questioned it as a town board, the information that we got from the independent, so to speak, engineer might not have been exactly totally accurate.
And Jerry, just to follow up on what Christina said, 129-5C states upon completion of the permitted project, the applicant shall contact the town's environmental consultant, fees to be incurred by the applicant, to confirm that the subject buffer meets the requirements of this chapter and the conditions of the permit. That's at the end, and that's paid for by the applicant.
Did we explain to the public the increased fees, where that money goes, just so the public that's sitting in here understands where that money, that increase, if you go from 250 to 750 to 1250, whatever that number is, how does that enhance? Where do those revenues go?
Revenues.
Revenue.
General fund.
It'll be in the B fund.
Okay. All right. But it is helping the budget.
Yeah, and
And the site.
basically user fee, administrative
Yeah.
costs, yes.
Yeah, Jim, because site visit fees that we
Right.
don't even have, we should have.
Right.
I mean, there's a real
Right.
cost there.
Now,
We hear again and again how busy the building department is.
Yeah.
And we've beefed off, but,
And just, again, the fees will last updated in 2019.
So Steve, looking at the chart here, all applications, public meeting renotice fee. That's new and we haven't been charging that.
Correct,
So we've been eating that.
correct. Well, not necessarily eating, those slight, the slight administrative costs that are
Well, what does it
incurred
cost?
and the notice in the
What's
paper.
it
That's what
gonna?
I'm talking about. We're paying for the.
Notice is by word, so really how much isn't.
It
Yeah.
does, but a range then, what?
Average, it depends on the public notice, it ranges between $60 to
$100, yeah.
$95.
Oh, okay, so that more than covers it, good,
Yeah.
And if there's a request for an extension, does that change the notice, the public notice?
No,
No?
Well, that's interesting too, a request for an extension of an existing permit, a permit that's already been issued, is that what
No,
we're
here.
extending? What?
no, extension of a permit.
A
So if a
permit.
permit expires 2020, want to have, like January 2020, want to extend for another 6 months, you come in and send in a letter seeking an extension.
What's usually the reason for an extension? Something,
What up in the Department of Health? Department.
health department's the biggest reason?
Yeah, these are not really extension of the permit, but the extensions of the resolutions. So they issue a resolution to meet certain criteria within, I don't know, next 6 months. they're stuck at the health department. That's why the first one is for free, because typically it's held up by the health department.
Okay.
So they get additional 6 months. If it's longer than that, there's typically a fault on the applicant's side.
Yeah.
Or, something
Yeah.
is holding it up. So
Okay.
in order for that's why first one is for free, and then subsequent ones are paid by the applicant.
I think 180 is an odd number. I'd like to see that be 200. I don't know. I think in 25s.
Where do you see? I don't even see that on here.
It's
the very bottom.
bold centered on the bottom, out of line kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I can't seem to see bold.
But what is the difference, what's the process for the lot line modification? What's involved in it?
No health department, that's more straightforward.
So why are we charging so much less for wetlands and a lot line modification?
Those are two completely different processes.
I understand that, but it's involving all the same people, the
No,
engineer, the
Yeah, no. What I would recommend is maybe we bring in Ian for this conversation, because you have a lot of questions that, again, I don't represent the planning board. And he would probably have him justify the numbers. He's the one who requested them. These are the numbers he's proposed.
Say that again?
You should bring Ian in,
Oh, okay,
because there's very good questions being asked and we don't have the answers.
right.
I'm just saying, if you're applying for a wetlands, you should probably pay more.
Yeah, I feel like we're leaving on the table too.
That's a good idea. Let's ask Ian to come next week. Okay, we'll move on to the zoning board.
So since the planning board fees were being contemplated to be increased, wanted to piggyback on with the ZBA. So let me just give you a rundown of a couple of towns, what they charge. So in Southampton, area variance would be $750 for the application fee. Similarly, with the interpretation, $750, which would be the filing fee. It was done without the benefit of a permit, meaning as built, double the fee. So it'd be double $750. And in Southold, if you have one variance and it's less than 200 square feet, it's $500. So if they look at the addition or the footprint of whatever's being built. If it's more than 200 square feet, it's $750. And for applications containing more than one request, it's an additional $500. For interpretations, it's $1,000. Rehearings are $500, and special permits range from anywhere of $1,000 and $2,400. So they get a lot of money as opposed to us. East Hampton, an area variance is $600 plus $300 each additional. And as built is $1,200 plus $600 each additional. So what we have now, no problem. What we have now is it's $100 for minor variances. We want to increase that to $200. For variances for projects under 20 grand, it's currently $375. When I say under 20 grand, it's the estimated cost and along in connection with that, either addition or structure. So right now we're $375, we would like to bump it to $500. And that's up to 2 variances. Over 2 variances in connection with the same project, there's an extra fee. So that's an extra, would be another $500 for any variances above 2. Variances for projects over $20,000, currently the filing fee is $750. We'd like that increased to $1,000. If you need a special permit, it's right now $1,000. We'd like to see it be $1,300. And similarly, with the renotice fee, we'd like to have that compensated by the applicant. So that would be new on the ZBA fee schedule, and that would be $100. And for variances done without a permit, so as-built variance requests, we double the fee. from the fee schedule that I just went through. Rehearing fee, 50% of the original fee, and interpretation would be $800. Right now, we don't charge for an interpretation, so
Wait,
a member of the public could have a question as to a determination made by the building inspector or a provision of the code, and it would be for free.
So Stephen, to go back to the one before that, variance for work done without a permit. This is just for the hearing.
It's the application fee.
This is just the application.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it would be double.
So is that meant to be punitive?
Yes.
Okay, well, I can see where, you buy a house, you don't know, I mean,
Buyer beware.
yeah,
Exactly.
no, I get it, but I'm just saying that, I'm not saying not to do it, I'm just,
So, but that's similar, we're gonna talk about docs, remember?
Right.
Someone put the float in without, and we want punitive.
right,
So
right,
So we want people to go through the
Process.
process and have proposed structures coming in front of the zoning board, not
Right.
actual buildings.
well, is anybody stronger than this? Doubling the fee, is anybody?
Building department's 5 times the fee.
Yeah, so,
No, it's typically in ZBA world from other municipalities, double the fee.
okay.
Again, but you can do what you want.
Mara, what's a public hearing notice fee, then rehearing fee?
So a public hearing renotice fee is if the application wasn't closed, then you have to renotice it for some reason.
Right, advertise it.
If the application was closed and the applicant wants it reopened for some reason, that's the rehearing fee.
But then you have to advertise it again too?
Correct.
Okay,
So you pay 50% of the original fee.
plus
Not the $100.
notice fee.
No, it's part of that 50% of the original fee. You're getting compensated for it.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so on to docs, if that's okay, or are we?
this is the most confusing thing. No.
So we're not acting on any of these today.
No,
But we can't.
We're
That's-
considering.
Yeah, it's not on for the special.
No, I mean, but even
I'm
just,
gonna try to look at,
right, I was
do
gonna
the
say,
budget.
we're gonna have more discussion.
Yes.
in the
Yep.
future. Just wanna
Yeah.
be clear
It's
on
just an intro.
yes.
Now, docs you may want to work on and do it, because I know we've discussed it and it's sort of pressing.
Is this what we have for the proposed fee list? Do I not have to write? Okay.
Well, no,
That's where, that's the only thing we charge, right, is what you're saying?
$135 for repairs and new construction, $250.
Yeah,
yes.
Anything over, repairs over 10,000, it's more, obviously.
yeah,
Requires actual dock fee, not a repair.
okay. Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah, so if you look at last resolution setting the fees pursuant to the town code for docks, you can change fees by a resolution. We don't have to do a town code amendment. And the last resolution setting the fees was new construction 250, repairs 125.
Give a date on that?
That is February 3rd, 2012.
Oh, wow, okay.
So if we go to Southold, which is, we go back to that trustee fee schedule, it's $1,250 for the filing fee.
Say they, wait.
So it's $1,250 for Southold.
Go.
This is for the wetlands.
No,
No.
This is docks.
Do we have
But the trustees they have jurisdiction over docks. So you use the same fee schedule.
Okay, that's what I was, this is the,
For docs, if it's under what? 20?
10,000,
It's under 10?
10,000 and under 125. I think over 10,000 requires the dock permit.
Where is that, though? I've never seen that. Is there another resolution? Okay.
so you're saying just your application fee for a dock in Southfield, $1,250.
$1,250 plus, then if it's a fixed dock, ramp, or float fee, it's $3 per square foot.
Oh, on top of the dock?
On top of it. So that's Southold. Now, Southampton is $500 for the application fee. Plus, if it's a fixed stock, $10 per square foot of surface area. If you have a floating dock with it, $10 per square foot of surface area. If they have pilings, it's $25 per piling. If there's a ramp and catwalk, it's $10 per square foot. If there's steps or stairs, it's $10 per square foot. If there's a walkway, it's $5 per square foot.
So other than just getting money for this, what's the cost? What's it costing us to review the application and?
Well, we see it happening. It's all the hours that are expended by the WMAC, and it's for,
I mean,
they're volunteers,
yeah,
they're volunteers, but
So we bring in.
but
an
support
engineer,
staff.
we bring in-
you bring, well, support staff.
You've got all the clerk fees, you've got, you know, the time for the clerks to do their job, the town clerk, the committee clerk. Notices in the paper.
Yeah,
Well, the other argument here is, and it was made just last night at the WMAC meeting by more than one member, which is this is town bottom.
yes.
This is the people's
Be
property.
protective.
And so anything we can do to sort of maximize that asset for the town as a whole should be looked at. One of the things brought up last night was maybe an annual inspection and fee for that inspection so that derelict docks don't then, fall into the water and cause a navigation hazard. Something, again, that, the town at large should not be perhaps paying for. So I think that that's a pretty good argument for
But don't-
increasing the
don't
fees.
The homeowners already pay increased taxes for it.
Meh. Somewhat. I would say, yes, it is,
You're talking to the guy that loves user fees, but I don't want to.
No, and no, but also.
not enough. You don't love them enough.
I know that most people that can afford to put a dock in are financially well off, but you may be inclined to reduce the size and scope based on the filing fees
That's what I'm
associated with it, and it could serve as somewhat of a deterrent. Now, we ran through an example
The size
using
and scope is
Southampton's.
important.
Christina, because I'm terrible at math, she went through this, and we did an average dock on Shelter Island, what the fee would be if we used the Southampton fee schedule. So she used it, the average
100 foot?
dock, 100 foot by 4 foot equals 400 square feet, so that'd be 4,000. 18 pilings at 450, and that's without extra pilings for those
Die-offs,
dolphins.
yeah.
So this would be on the low end. Catwalk 4x6, 24 square feet, $240. Steps 4x12, 48 square feet, $480. Floating dock 10 foot by 15 foot, 150 square feet. We have a 200 square foot max, so it's less, $1,500. Ramp to float 4 foot by 6 foot, 24 square feet, $240. The total would be $6,910 plus the $500 application fee, total of $7,410. So
So, and right now, ours is just the application.
250.
$250.
And Christina, half a dozen a year? Everybody about dock app. Yeah,
And there's been a lot this year.
it has been a lot this year, yeah. This idea of discouraging docks in general, but especially bigger docks, is also not to be so dismissed, because as WMAC likes to tell us, the easy docks have been built. And what's left is really, that's what they're doing right now. They're trying to figure out where docks should not be permitted at all on Shelter Island. Their gut feeling is it's going to be a fair amount of area, a fair amount of shoreline where they're going to recommend to the town board to say no docks here. And the little leftover after that, again, should, yeah.
Could I just ask a question, refresh my memory? When a dock is under $10,000, obviously it's only a $125 fee as opposed to $250. And if it's under $10,000, you do not have to file, isn't there some thing that?
In the building department,
So the
in
building
general,
department, In
right?
general, you can make those repairs without a permit.
Yes.
Right.
So here's my thing. Because I question these, when there's a fairly extensive repairs on docks, give me a quote of $9,500. I paid it $250 off the books. What if the repairs are, let's say, double that, 19 and change? I'll cut your check, give you cash or whatever it is. There's that game playing, because when I have seen some of these dock repairs that are fairly extensive, we're not just talking about cost
Right.
or, simple things. Talk about changing pilings and things of that nature that really kind of mount up the cost. And it's all under $10,000. I don't know. I just roll my eyes and say, we're taking this at the word of people that that's what it costs, but maybe it doesn't cost what we think it costs. Maybe it's more than that, and they know how to beat the system.
Would that not be the job of the inspectors to sort
They
of?
need a permit to repair regardless, but they can pull up an invoice and say it's gonna cost me this much, when actually maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
But other than that, the building permits.
I mean, say you come in, there's an estimate on the job, just went through this myself with my deck and all of that. An estimate on the job, and that's the cost of my building permit was based on the estimate on the cost of the job. I got lucky, it came in a little less than it was estimated to be. I didn't go for the $10 refund or whatever it would have been. But what happens if there's an adjustment to the higher end on that? Who comes back to the building department? Nobody. I mean, to say that, it didn't cost 12,000, it cost, double that. Change orders. I don't think you can catch everything in a democratic society.
Right, you're right. You're right.
And the town board can decide where this money goes. So you make it more painful to put a dock financially. And that may serve as a incentive, but you put the money into WMAC, you put the money into restoring the bay bottom, planting eelgrass. You can come up with ways to use that money to justify it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the point that BJ has made,
Dredging.
I think the point that BJ made is echoed by pretty much all 6 people now in the WMAC. Dock space is a premium. We're getting dock applications now often in places that probably either outside waters that are rough, that shouldn't have docks, inside waters that impact navigational channels and other things, and wetlands and things of that nature. Catwalks that are extended periods, like these ramps that go out over lots of wetlands to get to the dock to begin with, that have to have some type of ill effect on what lies below. And so I think it is time to do something. Again, those are pretty steep increases going from nothing to what you're suggesting here. But I think we need to sleep on it and maybe discuss this and come up with something that's fair,
Christina, in terms
but
of
significant.
administration of something like this, or I guess it's both Amber and Christina, I mean, just figuring out the fee is that, over time, you've got that automated. You've got some spreadsheet set up so that you just plug in the square footages and number of pilings and you come up with a
That
number.
would be probably based, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know if you decide to go this way, I don't know what structure you're gonna go with, but I could imagine that it would go similarly to the building permit.
Mhm.
You have an application permit, number of filings,
Yeah.
square footage, you can hear me.
Can they hear you?
Square footage.
Well, when they send in, like, the
square footage
site
of the
survey,
catwalk and such,
square
right?
footage from that
So
as
the
well.
burden is on the applicant, not on the administration as much.
Right.
When we compare these.
Right, I see what you're saying.
When we
Just
compare these
redesign it.
fee structures, things like Southold, where we need to have the lower end, obviously, you went to Riverhead, it would probably be lower than Southold, and Southold would be second, and then if you go to East Hampton, would be third, Southampton would be fourth, the highest fees.
Right.
We're not the Hamptons. So my thing is that if you take the
So you-
fees, if you take the fees, one, for the sake of Southold,
Mhm.
those fees, and the South Fork is, Sag Harbor or East Hampton,
Mhm.
and you average those together, you come up with some numbers. Not comparing ourselves to Southampton. We're not using just data from the South Fork. We're using data from the North Fork, maybe from Riverhead if they happen to have it, something equitable where you,
Yeah, I have those numbers. actually.
where you can actually explain to people saying, why are you comparing us? I mean, I can see it right now, why are you comparing us to Southampton and East Hampton? We're not, by and large, economically, we don't fit into the same category. Those people can afford those kind of things, we can't. But you surely can compare yourself, and when you're not charging anything, you've got to be moving in the right direction. And the fact of the matter is that, these are things that have to be, they're hard decisions, but they have to be done.
Yeah, Riverhead, I spoke to them. They don't do any docks really. Nobody applies for docks over there. And the fee is only $200, so it's similar to us. East Hampton, I'm trying to follow up with them, but the information that I have thus far is $125 for a new application, but I can't foresee that being accurate.
I feel like someone told me they're not allowing new docks in East
Okay.
Hampton, maybe.
And even in Southampton, I thought they put
I think that's.
on bulkheads on the bed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that they put a stop to that. You know,
Yeah, so.
That's,
Well, that's DEC too.
yeah.
So I would say our closest neighbors, Southold and Southampton, is what we should look at.
Right. And, you know,
And we put in more docks, I think, than,
We've had other new installations or repairs, 15 of them through live streaming.
yeah. Mhm.
For this year only, 15.
So if you've got on an average 5,000 per dock,
Well, how do we handle repairs?
repairs, well, again, repairs over 10 grand.
Or you could do a fee per square foot.
Of repair, yeah.
yeah.
If you're just replacing the decking, if you're replacing pilings, you could either do just the decking, or could do cost per piling, you could, I mean,
Right,
there's a way to sort it out.
yeah. Also, we're not like lockstep, just to say, you know, we did the whole big mooring increase last year. And that came out to, why am I blanking, 150 a year, I think is what the rate is now. Well, in Southampton, it's 300. So, you know, we're not just lockstepping, you know, but it is a way, I think, of making this fairer for the public at large.
But if you look at the demand that comes out in last night's WMAC meeting about boats,
Right.
checking moorings that are unoccupied, you know, there's more and more demand are going to be placed on the bay constables to ensure that, you know, and the anchorage areas, and a lot of talk last night about anchorage areas and people outside of anchorage areas and other things that are being scheduled, you know, on Sundays, you know, when the things are very crowded. We'll cover that report, but it's more and more is being asked of the town to police, so to speak, and to create some type of, you know, thing that, I mean, the pendulum is going to protect the environment. I think one of the cries I heard last night when I stepped with me is, from several people, is why do we wait for the waters to get to a certain level to be declared dangerous when we know what's contributing? The waters may be safe now, but why aren't we taking the necessary measures, particularly getting much tougher on the tanks on these boats, that they in fact are not cutting wide valves and they're not pumping out, you know, in these mooring areas.
Do we know that that's a problem?
Well, who said it last night? Wait a minute, this was interesting. Who said that one of the marinas on Shelter Island reports that when they launch a boat, they launch 90% of the boats have the Y valves wired when they launch them in the spring. 75% of them come back, the wire's been cut. So you're dumping someplace. Are you dumping right where you are moored or anchored? Or are you dumping just when you get outside the harbor? Or are you going 3 miles offshore? Or whatever the regulation is.
We know that's not happening.
So, you know, there's something going on that's, you know, perhaps still deleterious to the health of our harbors. But yeah, I mean, would another police boat be okay? I mean, Bo had an explanation of what happened. There's only 2 police boats. There's 3 harbor masters, 2 police boats. And there was felt to be a little lack of enforcement on Labor Day weekend. And Bo said, we have 2 police boats. I mean, you know,
It's a critical time from 10 in the morning till 2, 3 in the afternoon, which is where people are staying and leaving, but new people are coming in. You get into West Neck Harbor area and it's crowded. So the interesting thing there is if you have your boat out there, Jerry, and you're outside the anchorage area, that's okay because you're a resident. But then I come from Connecticut and I see your boat outside. I say, well, hey, listen, obviously this anchorage area is not being enforced. I just drop anchor right alongside of you. It's kind of confusing because for the outside boater, they don't see the difference. You know, there's not license plates that have, you know, Shelter Island
Yeah.
back of the license plate. So it does add to confusion.
But he also had a distress call. That was the other thing, and
Correct.
it took him off site, you know.
Yanking somebody out of the water, yeah.
Rescue somebody, and he said, what am I gonna do? Enforce the anchorage or go rescue somebody?
Right, that was at Crescent Beach. where
Hey,
they went
Chief.
back.
Hey, Jimmy, we're hearing this more and more about the anchorage areas and, the lack of, people on the water. Is the whole concept of I just went blank. What do you call the guys that give the tickets out?
Baycon?
TCOs.
Oh,
The
TCOs.
TCOs.
Oh, that came up.
Of a water TCO. Is
Well,
that realistic or is that not?
no,
No,
so
I try to balance the season, quite frankly. I think that when you look at this year, if we look at our 4th of July weekend and our Labor Day weekend, probably our busiest days of the whole year for the police.
that's correct.
I don't want to come up with a plan that only addresses 2 days out of the year. I'd rather look at the totality of it and confer with the harbor masters or Marine Patrol and come up with the best solution. Yes, Labor Day weekend was a super busy weekend in that area, but busy for us in all aspects. But, I'm not going to suggest that we need 2 more bay constables and another police boat because we had a busy day or 2 days.
Well, it's also,
So
Jim.
I just want to keep it in balance is really.
Yeah. But it's also not just the busiest days. The idea of, again, WMAC saying, insistently, I would say, boarding, the more boarding boats and enforcing the wired shut Y valves.
We've had 0 complaints, 0 of sewage in our waters this year. I don't want to, I'd rather wait till results come in. BJ, you articulated to me at one point that there was a study and they're testing the waters. Let's wait till those results come in. Just because, we don't have those kind of complaints. I'm not going to suggest we need a pump out boat. We have 3 marinas that do it and we have no complaints of sewage in our waters. Our waters are probably the best waters on the East End. I don't want to speculate on a problem that may or may not exist. I think we can talk about that forever.
One of the things that came up.
I understand, I'm a little strong in this delivery, but I think it's pure speculation sometimes.
Uh,
I don't know, it was a good point made last night, just by a member.
The other point that was made, Jim, last night is that TCOs are frequenting, they're going out there almost on the hour to Shell Beach and wait and so if they had a radio or something and they noticed that there was an issue of overcrowding or people outside the Anchorage area that they know were definitely not Shelter Island, maybe they don't know that, but somewhere where they could communicate with the patrol boat, saying if they notice something, that would enhance the alert. Now, obviously, we don't expect the TCO to get out of their vehicle, walk out to the edge of the water and get on a bullhorn and scream something, they don't have that kind of jurisdiction, but they are the eyes and ears, perhaps, if they see something. And we even went last night into the sailing on those 2 particular weekends, with the Benantic Yacht Club coming out and changing the course. And somebody said could we redesign the course on those busy weekends to give, to be located a little further away so they're not coming into the navigation areas? Because when they set up a course, they're coming very close, they're using a lot of area. We also then have 8 boats in there that are either water skiing or, tubing or doing something. And that, I think Bo said last night, that's the one time that I'll say, because I normally would never say this is not a good activity for this day. Maybe you need to go find another cove someplace, to do this activity because potentially it's very crowded. So again, it's
To your point,
common sense.
TCOs, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
TCOs relay messages to the bay constables, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Getting back to the dock fees
Mhm.
and the word about annual dock inspections that was brought up last night.
Yes, yeah.
My concern there is how, do we truly have an issue? And what kind of infrastructure would we be creating if we require annual dock inspections?
Yeah.
Can we possibly have, the fees cover it, and our
Exactly.
homeowners, for the most part, taking care of their dogs.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, I mean, and our inspectors don't have the time to take on annual
Oh,
dock
no,
inspections
yeah.
on top of what they have. You'd have to hire more staff.
yeah, that's why the infrastructure creep, is worrisome to me on that one.
Yeah. And most homeowners do. We've had a few down in the Silver Beach area where boards are missing, in the wintertime, and people trespass with cameras. I don't know who those people might be, but there was a harlequin duck in there, I went out to photograph that harlequin duck, came back with my $5,000 camera and lens on Binless A, Jim, and I looked up, and there was the board missing, or two, or three, or four, and I went right through it with one leg and the camera and but again, should have been where I should have been. And, you get what but it did get my attention, I will tell you that. Wow. And it did cost me a couple $100 of damage to the camera. Luckily, it did not go in the water and caused a little damage to my body. But that did heal. But there are, obviously, we don't condone people trespassing on ducks.
Shot, though.
Rare birds or ducks, that a harlequin duck that's never in our waters, but just thought that was kind of a funny story. An old guy that should have known better, doing something that he shouldn't have been doing.
Permit fees, not permit fees.
Yes.
So you really don't have it broken down. What are you suggesting for the fees?
No, I threw this out and I wanted to ponder and marinate on it. So those are your options. You can double it, triple it, quadruple it, and make it a flat fee, or you can have this Chinese menu.
So essentially, it's, you're paying to lease the bottom for the dock, the environmental impact of the dock, and the cost of us to process the application for the dock, and to inspect it and everything else. That's what we're feeing.
PJ, do you feel comfortable, since we've never taken anything really back from here, well, we have, but back to the WMAC, November meeting, to just discuss this a little further with them and.
Well, what I might do is actually just shoot an email to everybody just based on this discussion.
Okay.
And the chief's responses.
Okay,
Just that it was brought up and shot down.
yeah. Well,
But why, just that they should have a feedback, close that loop on the discussion last night. And if they want more information, they should have it on their agenda. No. The last night was seriously talked about dock, inspections.
inspections.
I don't see,
No, I know, I'm saying, but they should.
maybe like every 5 years or something.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
The only thing I would like to see, I don't know, maybe I can ask Judith, is just to get a feel for the dock adds to the assessment,
Yeah. I mean, if it's 20 or 30,000, especially depending on
Yeah,
age.
right.
And the other thing is we only have 330 docks in the assessment database, but they're really 440.
Mhm.
So they didn't all make it from the town clerk's office over to, where they existed before
Right.
assessment database was created.
Yeah, she has the up-to-date permits, so she has everything from 2023, so,
Right,
but the ones
but they have to go back.
required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally someone in that office, which is not, they don't have the time, but needs to sit and look at the GIS, see the dock there, check the database, see the dock.
Even more people.
The number of dogs we currently have on the.
Yeah, I just did it for comp plan, so let me just pull that up and get it for you.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so we have Ian coming in for the planning board. What about the zoning board? Just gonna follow what we do with the planning board?
Did you have any suggestions? It was just, again, it was brought to piggyback on planning.
Okay.
So it's just for your review. There was no one pushing it from the zoning board.
So Ian is gonna answer the questions, and then, docs, we have to come up with Christina will come up with a couple of scenarios, okay? Fee structures.
26, Jim.
26?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to do that on an annual basis would take a lot of time, a lot of time.
Well, I mean, what's the reason?
It's necessary.
All I would say is while you're on patrol, if you happen to notice a dock that's in disrepair, just report it. I mean, again, if you could identify a bottom 5% that are really abandoned or in very bad shape, that might be something that you want to just go out and look at 5% of 426, you know, so you're looking at 20 docks.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to 426 docks. You know,
But you're not, how do you find the 5%? You have to look at all of them to find that.
no, I'm just saying, as you normally do your patrols, you're going up the creek.
Oh, you mean the Bay Constable?
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not going out
Yeah.
deliberately.
Right.
No, but you notice a dock that's in total disrepair, it's been
Right.
abandoned, it's been sitting there without a boat on it, and it's falling apart. So that might be something that we might want to pay attention to, you know, for a lot of reasons, by the way. You know, it can be, as boards start to fall into the water and stuff, it could be a navigational hazard.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
so,
so we have,
Yeah, so,
we gotta get in touch with Ian to come in. Christina will put together some fee structures for the locks and about it next week. Okay?
Yep.
Next on the list is some WUI rebate applications.
I'm just gonna recuse myself for this part.
Okay.
I'll be.
Well,
Yes, we historically would take a look at, the WTI, goes through the process of the review, makes recommendations whether or not we're going to approve the request or not approve it, but pass it on up to us. We've had so few in the past couple of years coming forward, but now that we've readjusted the rebate rates, applications are starting to process again. We used to put them on the work session agenda just to make sure if there was an issue with one or if someone was turned down and we wanted to review why it was turned down. That's the whole point of this review. So to just quickly go through these are all straightforward. There's nothing special. There's no special requests being made by the applicants. Shannon, $12,000, Serdars, $12,000. Singh is $16,000 because it includes a $4,000 well relocation. Waldbauer, $12,000, and Wallace, $12,000. Catherine can circulate it to everybody, the applications. Get them, but again.
that's 64,000 total.
So then on the resolution,
and again, just, these are all eligible. It's not like any did construction that was mandated by the county that they put one.
correct. Yes. These are all voluntary.
Mhm.
So that's it on that one.
Good. That was easy. Okay, that's the agenda. We'll go through the board member reports. Meg,
Oh, Megan.
She's not, yes.
shows you how much attention I pay.
That's so cute.
The other way,
Yeah, PJ, you want to start?
Sure, I always have to check my calendar to see where I've been. So I think we've already talked about the WMAC enough. It was the first meeting without John Needham, but he couldn't stay away. He was in the audience, but was WMAC thanked him nicely with a card and dinner out, so that was lovely. And he's, hopefully he attends when he can for the next few months, because it's the idea of getting him to download his brain.
Yes, well done.
I mean, it's really amazing. So he did have some good contributions last night from the other side of the podium.
yeah, Bill Garrity stepped in as the,
Yeah,
as the sub to
right.
chair last night.
That's a question I have. Are we the ones who appoint the chairman, right? This was just a temporary thing that WMAC said, yeah, Bill, go ahead and run the meeting.
Yes.
They usually make the recommendation.
Right.
We, via resolution.
Will
do the
approve it.
appointment.
Okay.
We did vote on the Birch mooring application, and that went through 5-0. It was a prairie mooring. We gave you, I have those avoidance that I can share with you. And I've had it, but I do have them. And we, one of the bigger things that came in, since Andrea Carter was present with Jack Costello last night, we talked about the Big Ram LLC dock application, and their attorney was on Zoom, and he chimed in a couple of times to say what he needed to say. Basically, they were doing exactly what they did in the last two meetings, is demanding a vote from the 5 people that were in attendance last night. We were missing 1 person plus John's absence, so we had 5. And pretty much we had, if I'm not mistaken, BJ, correct me if I'm wrong, was pretty much the consensus was if we separate the dock application from the catwalk and stairs and everything else, and all 5 members would be in favor of the dock application 5-0. It meets all the criteria without any problems. If in fact you want it, and then the attorney asked us to consider, no, all putting it all together, it was 0-5 to shoot it down, because there was some concern about the close proximity and having to grant a variance when there was room to move the thing further to the south, I guess. But again, that was the way they voted. It was 5-0 in support of just the dock application, and 0-5 not in favor of supporting it with the current listing of the catwalk and such.
So they took an actual vote on it, so it's going to get moved to the town board next?
Yeah, so, and by the way, and one of the things I think, BJ, correct me again if I'm wrong, but I think several of the members said, listen, we're here for the dock application only. We are turning this, we're not in position to make this kind of judgment. So even though they were forced to vote on it, if they had to be, they did not want to sit in judgment about this catwalk, and they're turning that back to the town board, which we acknowledged at the 2 liaisons there last night, and we would take it back to you for our judgment and whether we would approve that portion of it or not.
So, okay, so we had the hearing. Did we close the hearing?
No,
Rams had in?
right, no, adjourn.
No,
Never had it.
Oh, we haven't had.
We opened it.
Not the Ramshead, this is big Rams.
Right, okay, so we reopened the hearing. Have we opened it at all?
Yes, I
Okay,
believe we
did,
opened it
yes.
and adjourned.
We opened it and it's been adjourned.
We opened the hearing. We have the recommendation on the dock from the WMAC. Do we act on that, and what do we do about do we have to do everything in conjunction, or?
Yes, everything in conjunction, and they would have to submit a letter to the town board asking for relief from the setback requirement.
I think the WMAC has gotten that letter, right, Christina? They got a hardship letter, yes, I believe. So that could be just forwarded to the town board.
And the survey met, and there was discussion about the mean high water, and the mean high water was basically agreed upon where we said it was for other visitation. The mean high water situation was.
Well, there was a discrepancy. I don't know.
There was.
I don't think we want to go into that detail
Yeah, we
here,
shouldn't
right?
no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Right.
But just, again, just so you were back to that, 5315 waivers, the town board shall have the authority to modify or waive subject to any appropriate conditions, any provisions of this chapter, as in its judgment is not requisite to the interest of public health, safety, and welfare, except where such waiver would be contrary to other ordinance or state law. A request for such waiver may be initiated by written request to the town board accompanied by documentation that fully explains and supports the reasons for the request. Additional information may be sought from the applicant at the discretion of the town board. So I think they should, I haven't seen the letter, but they should be making a compelling case.
But that doesn't, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry, that doesn't address, can we as a town board do what the WMAC is literally recommending us to do? Are we allowed to separate out an application, or do we have to demand a new application?
No.
No.
It's, you can, because it's part and parcel of the same structure. that
Right.
They're asking. It's just the WMAC didn't want to
Right,
speak to it.
right,
That's all within their
yeah,
bailiwick. So they can do that and then just send their recommendation limited to just the dock and not speak to the other portion of it,
right.
which you can now address in the dock application, because it was part of the dock application. It was part of everything that was
It
submitted.
doesn't make sense to like break up applications
No.
into different pieces. It's just.
Okay, so it's rejected or accepted as a whole, is what you're saying?
Request a modification.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
say, we'll request it if you do this, like we'll approve it if you do
Right.
this. I mean, that's just what you would always do with
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
with an application.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it's like,
yeah. Well, well, I guess it's, just depends on the size of the modification requested, because sometimes we just verbalize in the resolution what, this is subject to this that wasn't in the application, or we request a brand new
Right.
plan.
So are we gonna reopen that hearing at the next town meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Also on the Carroll Dock application that was voted upon after a site inspection, members of the WMAC went out to the proposed application. They spoke about moving the dock west approximately 5 to 6 feet, which would take them outside the 25-foot setback to the east. Jack Costello says, but it makes more sense to keep it where it's at. But I think the committee was pretty adamant about the fact that this is a minor modification. It's not a big deal. You can still use the existing stairs. You might have to angle it a little differently, but they wanted it. They did not want to have to, there's room to play with there. So they support Carroll Dock if it is moved over that 5 to 6 feet, not requiring a variance of the 25 feet. It's outside the 25-foot boundary line to the east. So that was also done. And the close of business, the last thing was Chapter 53 revision. Bill talked about, and he handled this very well. He says the goal is to develop a list of areas that need to be deleted, added, or somewhat amended. He wanted to create a subcommittee of 3 people, approximately 3 people from the WMAC, to work on this. He then proceeded to go around these 5 people who were present, said and he had directed this before the meeting, could you take a look at the code, the current code, and could you give me some type of feedback to those areas of concern that you're most concerned with? James Eklund went up and stated 3, Al stated 3, Matt stated 3, and so on. And they stated different. Some of them the same, some different, but yes, so they actually honed in on areas of concern about docks. So they'll be looking at that, in the future with the subcommittee. So we'll report back to you on the workings of that. But all in all, meeting went a little over an hour, not much. It went pretty well. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Amber?
West Water met on Friday. It's a quarterly meeting, so we hadn't had one in 3 months. And the status of the capital improvement projects, everything's moving along. The remaining pieces are the installation of the meters, the remote meters. Supply chain issues, so they've gotten some temporary ones installed in some places, and I think they're ready for the rest to come in with that project. Then they have left the repaving of the road. And I think there was some discussion about whether or not just to do patchwork or redo the whole road. And it doesn't make sense to do the patchwork, so it's going to be the.
I think Brian is pretty adamant.
Yeah.
Which road is this?
When they
tore things up.
tore things up and put the
The
mains
mains.
in, they thought they could save money, but just patch it in.
Yeah,
Felt.
Jay was most concerned about the hill going up,
Yeah.
that curbing on this side and everything was going to be disturbed. They did a fairly good job with that, but that would be great if they could.
Yeah.
You have to live with it now
Yeah.
for a long time, so.
That was recently redone. And so once all the projects are done, then they can go ahead and apply for reimbursement of the $500,000 grant. So so we got into the talk about the rates and things of that nature, and what Westwood can bill versus what Suffolk County Water Authority charges. It's really the differential in the rates. So we have a surcharge to pay for all of this infrastructure work of $91,000 and almost $92,000 a year. So once we get the grant reimbursed, that will take that surcharge down to $61,000. So there'll be 2 years where we're past basically by the time the grant's reimbursed. It'll be 2 years before we can change anything on the surcharge. We had anticipated that we would have a shortfall. Where the rates were set of $25,000, it actually came in at a $27,000 shortfall. So that was a pretty good estimation. Even Joe Corney was surprised that gotten it that close. We started with West Neck Water reserves of 150 some odd thousand. So the 25,000 comes from there. So the question that's now before the West Neck Water Board is, what do they want to do once we get the $500,000 grant? Because our shortfall, at least if they keep the rates the same, our shortfall for 2025 would be just $300 if the calculations turn out the way they're supposed to. So Western Water, Suffolk County Water, there's rate increases every year. Western Water has to decide, do they want to just keep the rates flat for a number of years until they use up the reserves, which in my estimation could be 10 or 11 years from now. Or do they want to give rate relief now and start to increase the rates as that money dwindles?
Is this, as is, or are they anticipating any new hookups?
This would be as is. If there were a new hookups within
Yeah.
the boundaries of
Yeah.
West Neck Water, then that would be beneficial. And, Leon, the year that we're looking at only opened in August, and so didn't have a full summer. So that may, they have slightly different numbers in 2020.
Are there a couple houses that wanted to, in the system? that
Yes,
wanted to-
yes, but that's not gonna add a lot of,
Yeah.
$1,000,
Yeah.
house or something like that. And then if there's an expansion of the district to take it out to, like say Hilo Shores wanted to join up, that's a whole different conversation, because there's
I
a
was just,
structure.
I
that-
was just thinking it wasn't along the main.
Yeah, so it'd just be people
Yeah.
within the district, but I don't think it's going to impact the numbers, greatly. So next meeting is in 2 months, just the way the holidays and things are falling.
So how does that work then? They still have their board of directors. Do they put it out to the whole West Neck Water people for a vote, or what do they do?
I'm not sure how they're going to, get that out there. They may think about it for, a little bit. And I'm sort of thought the consensus was to leave things as is for the time being. Let's continue watching it, but it also gives them a chance to talk to.
Okay.
the
And any news on
residents.
when they're gonna start the new well?
I got that in my
Oh,
report.
you got it?
Yeah, I
Okay,
was gonna
thanks.
say, yeah.
Okay.
And that's all that I have.
Jim?
Yeah, I just, we covered the WMAC meeting. We did make a little field trip before Jerry and I and Eggs and Joe Fenora went over to the Tot Playground to look at the playground, because we had some reports that there, some day, we knew about the pipe that's in the Tot Playground, and that's obviously covered, it's a temporary fix. But I took pictures, probably took 15 pictures inside the thing of things that need correcting. So what I'm going to do, Jerry, under Jerry's direction, said, listen, Jim, just develop get those pictures out to the town board. Let's have a two-phase kind of thing. What we need to do immediately, when I say immediately, within the next 4 to 5, 6 weeks, well before Thanksgiving time. There's a lot on Brian's plate, but there's some corrective action that we can take quickly over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks to make that a safer place, and definitely. And then phase 2 would be more of a long-range kind of thing. What equipment needs to be taken out? What needs to be replaced? How would we pay for it? Do we look for volunteers? Donations? Do we form a committee? Kind of a committee here of interested residents that would like to get together to support that effort. So we'll take a look at a long-range plan as well. But immediately we can fix some things that we definitely saw there this morning. The other thing was, let's see. The other thing was on capital planning. We met this morning. Real Point, we have a new contact person, somebody from the USGS. Her name is Sophie Killey. She's a biologist. She's Environmental Analysis Branch of New York District. I have her phone number. I also have her cell number. So between Joe and I and Brian, we'll be in contact with her. Brian did reach out to her about Real Point. Remember, this started in 2018, so it's been 5 years that we've been messing with this. Thank you for reaching out. Back to Brian. The project has not fallen through the cracks because the chain because of the change in congressional representatives. Right now, we're working on a draft to request funding to develop a scope for the study. Assuming that the request is approved, which he thinks it will be, we will reach out to discuss the scope that we're looking for. So we did send that back to them, by the way, of what we would like to see and the ideal situation. So I have another copy. I can send her that. It's somebody different. Under Fresh Pond, nothing has pretty much changed there. We are still waiting and will be waiting over the course of months or perhaps extended period of time. It could be anywhere from late fall, winter, or even into early spring 2024 to get some type of reply back from the New York State DEC about our grant application, which we have filed for $1 million. The project is shovel ready to go. We're hoping if we get that grant will be Plan A, and it will cover the expenses. Plan B, we don't have a Plan B yet, so that'll be up to the new town board to develop a Plan B. Should we not get that, get that grant, how do we go upon moving forward with that project? The third thing was the ADA project update, and Chief Reed updated us. I put the notes from last meeting on there. Amber was nice enough to give us all the dollars that we have appropriated for this year and next year for the design work, which is basically what we're looking for from Pam. So she is kind of winding down at police headquarters, the design work and what will be needed there, construction costs, and fine tune that. And then she will move over to Justice Hall, the same thing there. What I don't want people to believe that this is a 1 to 2 year project. This is more of a 3 to 6 year project. And I'm echoing Jim, if he's still on the line there, that this is, strictly, it's going to take us through 2024 to develop all the design work that's needed for Justice Hall. We're going to have to do some, construction costs there. And if we decide to take those two projects on together, that probably will be something that will be pushed to 2025, 2026. But that doesn't mean that we're not moving in the right direction, because part of the process of becoming ADA compliant is first to have a plan. You can't just say, we're ADA compliant. We will hopefully in a matter of a few weeks have the building across the street, the community center will have a ramp, and we will in fact be compliant. Everything that we've done that we can do within the house that's cheap, and we do it to try to become ADA compliant. But take two buildings that are, approaching 85, 90 years of age and trying to get something ADA compliant is costly, and it's got to be done right. So, and it's got to be fine tuned. So it's going to take a while for those two buildings to come up to speed. But again, Rome wasn't built in a day. We take it step by step. The logical step is what we're doing right now. And we have plans for next year as well. So the new town board will just determine where we go from there. The next item is the municipal wastewater treatment project. That we really don't need to talk about. But what we did talk about is the red triangle, when we can anticipate the results of the water testing on the 160 some plus people that requested to have their water tested. That should be coming back within a matter of days or weeks in a pretty short period of time. Obviously, that's confidential information that goes to each homeowner. In other words, we will not get a report on 167 people with addresses and the state of their water for publication. That will not happen. That will go directly just to the homeowner themselves. But what we will get is an overall view of what really is out there. So, we'll have a good sampling from around the triangle of really what the water quality looks like, especially as it pertains to nitrogen. And so we're very much in the, early involvement of this, but we are proceeding along those lines. The next thing was West Neck Water, which Amber just covered. The punch list is completely done except for the new meters. So a lot of the old meters that were on the houses, the homes and businesses are being replaced with much more accurate meters that depict actual usage. The meters, again, they're old, and the Suffolk County Water is replacing those. Update on the new wells along New York Avenue. Paperwork was done, the design work is done. We should hear back shortly from New York DEC. to, find out whether those new wells are a go. Hopefully that will happen, and we will be proceeding with 2 new wells along New York Avenue. Any news on Suffolk County Water Authority? There was none. On the next item, the Shelter Island Heights Property Corp. wastewater treatment plant, Bridge Street inclusion. At the end of the last meeting in September, I stuck around, I put together a letter. I shared it with Christina. Christina was nice enough to upgrade that letter and make some amendments along with the supervisor. We then passed around, we made some additional amendments to it. We did send a copy of it over to Stella. Stella made a couple of amendments that she wanted to see on there. And basically those 7 or 8 property owners, not business owners, but property owners have been notified by mail. And the letter basically is a little introduction of what we're looking to do. If the town wants to stay in this project, obviously Bridge Street is very, very important to us. If it comes back, and this is all to find out whether they are interested in having a meeting with town officials to discuss this further. And that's all it's about. It's not about making a commitment or anything else. So we've got one of the 7 or 8 back, and that person was definitely interested in attending a meeting. It would be held here at Town Hall, and we would invite the Heights, Stella, and her people here as well. And there's lots of questions that they would like addressed about how this would go down, what the cost would be, maintenance fees, all those kinds of things, which we would do at that meeting. And then we would be in a position to say, do we have 5 of the 8, 2 of the 8, all 8 people on board? Because there's got to be a number that we reach where we say it's worth our while to stay in this project. But if it's a low number where it's in the minority, we say, listen, we're not in anymore, we're out. And then, of course, the Heights would take over this strictly by themselves. When they wanted to upgrade their plant with their plant, and I know Stella's usually pretty much online here, does meet current standards. Now, would the upgrade of the plant enhance what we put back in? Absolutely greatly. I mean, it would reduce it even further. So the upgrading of the plant is something that eventually, may have to happen. But that will be a decision based on by the Heights and the people that live up in the Heights. Nothing new to report basically on the community center. We are, again, election day is coming up. We need to get that ramp in sooner rather than later. Front door has been resolved. That's the good news with Riverhead Lumber. So Brian's worked out a deal where we're getting a new front door for that. Condon Dock update, the DEC, there's a few other modifications that they needed from the town. Joe was right on it, sent some edits. They were minor, but some new drawings back to the DEC. Our goal is to get this done by Memorial Day 2024 and before. So if it comes back from the DEC, we have money set aside to address that problem. And basically it is involving a couple of things there. It's involving the raising of the bulkhead, the replacing of the bulkhead, and the turnaround to enhance the area down at the end of the street to make it more user-friendly for people backing boats in and using the boat storage area and everything else. So that's part of the plan. New York Avenue, again, we talked about this as being a multi-year plan. One of the things I noticed when I spent this past weekend, I spent a lot of time up here writing down every one of these comments and looking at every one of these red and green dots, which took me hours and hours to retype. It's an 11-page document that is now disseminated back to both Meg and to BJ to give to the committee and to look at. But one of the things I picked up on is a common theme here, very much expressed by a lot of people about increasing safety, sharing the roads between cars, bikes, joggers, walkers, that kind of thing. Again, this is not a plan that's going to be developed in a year and implemented in a year. To me, this is a plan that needs to be developed over a decade. So one of the things I suggested last night, if the new town board sits down here and says, yes, that's a goal of ours to make our roads safer, well, New York Avenue is a great starting point. So your goal for 2024, if Stella gets her permits, everything in place there, and the survey's done, and they're going to do their portion, we're going to do our portion, and we can get a vast majority of the people, and that's determined by the town board, whether that's mandated or voluntary, to get pedestrians and bicycles off New York Avenue. People have suggested down here, two people suggest up in here, making it one way. We've discussed that in the past. The problem is you have the Heights Fire Department and you have firemen that need to get to that house. Rather than drive all the way around, they need to use New York Avenue. So I don't know whether that's a realistic thing that we would make New York Avenue one way, but surely as narrow as a road as it is, and then most dangerous part of the road is at the north end of the road, by putting in this path wide enough to accommodate all the things I mentioned, it would be a major step forward. And then you develop the land. You know, next thing I talked to Chief Reed a little bit about this morning, targeting, Route 114, taking a look at that and how parts of it, or maybe, out to Second Bridge or First Bridge, there are areas that are more dangerous that we need to examine. So that would be for a committee of people to sit down and do. Under new business, capital plan, where it's all set for 2024. Again, we'll make a formal presentation to the town board, which we do in our budget meetings about what our capital plan exists for next year and what it looks like for the next several years. Projects have already been designated. Again, new town board may come in and reprioritize some of those things, but that's up for the new town board to decide. One of the things I talked about with Jim this morning is, and I rehearsed this, tennis courts, pickleball courts, and basketball courts, whose responsibility to maintain and take care of these things? And Jim said to me, and I'm sharing this with you in public, is that, Jim, I'm not sure, Jim Colligan, I'm not sure you have really the support of the other four people, because we've never really discussed it about, is this something we want to go in? And again, three of us are leaving. So maybe it's something that the new town board wants to address. But it is something of importance because it involves money. It involves responsibility. It involves maintenance of these areas. I feel strongly about it because I even when I leave office, it'd be something that would draw me back to help with in terms of even getting donor money like we did for the basketball courts. And George was so successful at raising money to repave the courts and repaint the courts. And Fred Theo was so good to us in terms of getting the tennis courts redone and new caging and everything else. That was all great. I think we can repeat that. But we have to have a sense, or the board then looks at me and says, Jim, I'm out. Let's wait. Let it go to January, February. Let the new town board discuss that. So I'm just throwing that out to you guys, because there's no sense of having a discussion with Brian Dolger when we don't know exactly if we want to move on this. Because it's a dialogue between the town and the school about what they want to give up and whether it's shared or whether it's leased or, there's all different kind of ways legally to work this out. Capital plan needs, we've talked about that. They have been predetermined. Town's mitigation plan, we've obviously done a great job. I want to thank Chief Reed, who does a great job on developing that plan, along with a bunch of other people and the town engineer and Brian Sherman, putting that plan together. But monies have been appropriated for, various things that will address that, the Causeway or West Neck Road. In the next year or two, there's monies being put aside for, and that not again, just design kind of work and things of that nature. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. It's something that's going to be a multi-year plan, and it's got to be looked at as a multi-year plan. And I'm happy to announce that, that the town board and Brian are looking for money. We're trying to replace the new scale house, the recycling center, which, by the way, is decades old, has served its purpose. And I don't want to say should be condemned because the guys have cleaned it up and they're trying to work with it. But in my estimation, I've been inside that scale house on the worst days, and I would not work in there under those days. I mean, I know there were dead animals were removed, but the thing needed to be replaced. Thank God. I think we're looking real hard. Brian's looking real hard to find that money, which we think we can cover to put in a new scale house there. That is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Meg?
So on Thursday, the WAC had a event at the library where they discussed fertilizers and fertilizer usage and fertilizer regulation and anything and everything having to do with fertilizer. And based off of that sort of starting point, they're going to try to kind of get a group together to kind of work on it further, to create educational materials for people, to make recommendations to the town board, because it's all done through the WAC, but in conjunction with Green Options, in conjunction with CAC. So just kind of getting like a little subcommittee together to talk about fertilizer education, fertilizer usage, recommendations to the public, how to get information out and available to people so that people understand what all their options are when it comes to maintaining their lawn and kind of what the regulations are. So that was kind of the first meeting of what sounds like is going to be many meetings with this topic in mind. So it was very well attended. It was about 2 hours long. A lot of good questions come back and forth. There were people from the industry who, just do this as part of their living, who are fully trained and certified, and they do a lot of continuing education on their own just to make sure that they're up to speed. And then there are a lot of, members of the public who just had questions and were curious. So I think it was a very good discussion. I'm sure there's going to be more of them in the future. But those library events that the WAC holds are very informative. They're nice opportunities for the public to engage with the committee and to kind of get some feedback. So I always recommend people look into those. They're very handy. Other than that, we have a CPAC meeting. Our next meeting, committee meeting, is going to be October 13th. It's a Friday at 6:30, and we're going to start going over all these boards and recommendations and things that we've received. The official last day for comments on this current draft is October 15th. So the committee is going to meet on the 13th, and then we will look at anything that comes after that, just to get started and to get the committee back on their feet, and to also see what other dates they're available to meet. And so as a committee, we're going to go through, look at all of the comments and recommendations and discuss potential changes to the comp plan as a group. And then those changes will go to the consultants and they can review them and see what they think about them. And then they can make all the edits in the document. So that's kind of our moving forward plan.
Nice.
Meg, just for my knowledge and for the public's knowledge, the comments that, 3 people quit the committee, which we're going to do a resolution on, because they felt that their input wasn't taken. What was the process when people made comments? And I mean, the way I saw it was if the majority thought it should go in it move forward, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the way it's been a discussion the whole time, so people made comments. There were members of the public who would come and make comments, and then the committee would discuss those comments and either choose to incorporate them or choose not to incorporate them. That happened a few times where we got like a long letter from the public. We discussed the letter in the committee. We discussed the recommendations with that person present, and changes were made. Some changes the person agreed with, some changes they didn't agree with, but it was considered, it was discussed, and not every comment can be discussed in that much depth, especially if it's a topic that recommendation has been made by multiple people and it's that general topic has been discussed when talking about the plan. So I don't know. I mean, they've been present for the discussions and they have their input. I mean, if it were me, I would have chosen to stay in so I could continue to have my voice heard in the committee meetings. But, everybody, it's their decision to make. It's all volunteer, and I think everybody's tired. It's been a long process. But this is kind of the point we've been working towards, is having a draft that the public can chew on. And, I think this is the fun part, is getting public feedback and making these modifications based on comments and recommendations given by the public. So, this is the part I've been looking forward to, is actually digging into significant public comment. So I would say everybody's had a chance to say something, and they will continue to have a say.
Yeah. And I'm just picking up on Jerry's thing. I honestly believe that a couple of Saturdays ago, when you had the thing over at the community center, on a scale of 1 to 10 is really high. I thought the comments basically were, even, the red comments, there's some good comments up there. There's some great comments up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And there's some very good things. This is the exciting part where not a handful of people are going to make decisions. You're giving the public, and literally 150 people show up to something on a Saturday. That's big doings. Now, if you can continue to draw like that and get that kind of attention and make it even more constructive and isolate in on areas that need to be isolated for discussion, that's great. This document is going to be everything that people want it to be, based on not 6 people or 9 people or 2 people or anybody else. It's going to be based on what the community wants. They're going to shape this thing in the final analysis. And it may take a little longer than we thought, but guess what? The most important thing is the final product. If we get something we really like and is going to guide this town in the proper direction for the next decade, that's success. That's how you measure success. And we've got to be patient, we've got to stay focused, and we got to stay on the positives. So there was a couple of people that come in with negative vibes. You listen politely, but that's all it is. I'm more turned on by the people that, even if they have something that's against my feelings, but it's said in a respectful manner, I'm more apt to listen, but I'm saying, you know what? Maybe you're right. Then when 3 or 4 people tell me that, God, maybe I'm wrong and maybe they're right. That's.
There were, a couple of things though that I think should be mentioned. The point of the dots was to get a sense of how the public at large, represented by 150 people, felt about a specific topic. And we definitely received reports of one person standing there with a whole, a bunch of reds, just, hammering one suggestion or action item that they don't agree with. So the red and the greens are a little bit, suspect in terms of how well they truly represent what the people in the room felt. I just kind of want to put, grain of salt, not to disregard or not pay attention at all, but definitely grain of salt. I think that's important to get into the record.
On the other hand, BJ.
Yes.
I took 15 of them, 10 green and 5 red, and I used my 10 green, I used no red. So, that's.
But you didn't use them all in one spot.
No, you put it in 10 different
The
spots.
idea was to use
Yes.
one opinion per thing, and it's almost juvenile in its subterfuge.
Again, the most important thing here, look beyond that, folks.
Yeah.
No, but I just kind of want people to, and in terms of comments, it is not the public's job to write a comp plan. So the comp plan's been written, and here's the draft, and comment on it, and understand that we understand you have your passions, but so do other people. And so that your comment maybe is not getting in there verbatim. And maybe your suggestion for an action item is not going to be put in as strong a language as you would like.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But this has to represent everybody as, a consensus as far as we can determine it. And that's the purpose of the CPAC, is to be, a consensus sort of divining organization. I think they've done a good job of that. I really do. Are we done? Are you done?
I was just saying,
Yeah.
the one thing I'm really looking forward to is, we've been looking at this thing for so long. The committee has been looking at this document for so long. And it's really going to be great to get different perspectives. Now we get to look at it from a different angle. So things that the committee and us may have thought made sense, when
Right.
you're an outsider looking at it for the first time, you're like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And so some of those comments are so helpful when it comes to
About clarity.
divining what the actual intention of the action item or the recommendation was. So now that gives the committee perspective to go back and say, oh, okay, so we were looking at it from this direction. But if you look at it coming from this way, you're like, wait, I don't understand that. There's no context, or it's missing some defining characteristics. And I see a lot of that in like the spots where there were red dots. A lot of what I saw was confusion.
Right.
A lot of the questions that are attached to it is, I don't understand what this is referring to, or
District.
how do you clarify this? And so I think it's going to be really helpful for the committee to look at it, and when we have our discussions, to be able to debate all sides of the argument now that we see where the questions are, where the confusion is, And so that, I'm hoping, is going to be really the meat of the discussions and the committee meetings moving forward.
I think a lot of that can be corrected with a clause, literally a clause.
Oh, yeah, just
I mean, yeah,
clarifications.
no doubt.
Yeah.
I just have one thing, if I could, that I mentioned last night at the WMAC meeting, that the town and the village of Deering Harbor have met, and we are working on an intermunicipal agreement to just codify the way we have long handled the moorings in Deering Harbor that overlap with the village bottom control and the town. I shouldn't say they overlap, because they actually don't. The village control to 1,500 feet, the town outside of that, and to just establish some pathways for the future so that we can keep up to date and in agreement with each other on this topic. But that should be
one thing
coming.
you-
Hopefully we get it on the work session next week for a discussion.
I think the most important thing you said is when people said to you, PJ, where is this in writing? It's just,
All agreements, they're just verbal agreements.
Right.
That's why it's important that decades and decades and decades later,
it actually goes down on paper and say, here's
what it is.
you know, the 5 feet is for this, the 1,500 feet is for that.
Yeah.
And you, as you said,
Right, next week.
it seems like there's not going to be any major areas of contention here.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of areas of contention, it's just, but we'll put it in writing so that we have it in writing. You know,
Mhm.
It's important.
Mhm.
Okay, Meg?
I'm good.
I
Steven?
just had
Oh,
one other
Amber?
thing, I just remembered. Hazmat drop-off is usually the first Saturday of the month, and because we're still, the training's been scheduled, but it doesn't take place until later this month, so there will be no hazmat this Saturday. It will reopen for November 4th. It's with no PSA.
6 o'clock tonight, we'll be meeting with them, discussing about it. Our chairman is going to be Ted Hotel.
And I have Sean Davy and Dan Clark and I, the four of us, we're sitting down talking about clearing of properties when to build new homes or major renovations where people come in and do clear cutting. So obviously, there are lots of towns around us that have policies that guide that have formulas that work. So and I have folders for everybody with what every one of these towns do and what's on our books, what they do in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of good information. I have goals set up for us. So we should have a good opening meeting tonight, from about 6 to 7:30 and get some of the ground rules. We hope to have something done. I think we could do it probably in 3 or 4 meetings. My goal, and I talked about this with Tim, is to get this back to the town board prior to Thanksgiving. That's the goal. If we meet once a week, we should be able to do this, put it together, final product, present it to the town board at a work session, and get your feedback on what you think.
Okay.
Good. Steven?
Nothing.
Amber? Audience? No? Anybody in the Zoom audience? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion. We adjourn the work session and go into a special meeting to do 2 resolutions. One, changing the members on CPAC, the number, and second, to override the tax levy.
No, to set the public hearing.
Set the public hearing to override the.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I get started?
Yes, please.
All right. Whereas on September 22nd, 2023, via letter, Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee members Benjamin Diet, Lily Hoffman, and Petra Schmidt submitted their resignation therefrom effective immediately. Whereas the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee currently consists of 10 members, whereas 9 members. That's what I was thinking as I read it. I was like, wait a second. Whereas the town board has determined that since the draft comprehensive plan is almost complete and the remaining members are diligently and capably pursuing that end, it is unnecessary to fill the subject vacancies. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board accepts the resignation of Benjamin Diet, Lily Hoffman, and Petra Schmidt from the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. And be it further resolved that the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee shall now consist of 6 members until the draft plan is complete. So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Be resolved, the town board hereby calls a public hearing to be held on 6:10 PM on the 31st day of October, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed local law entitled Override the Tax Levy Limit, to wit, be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to override the limit on the amount of real property tax that may be levied by the town of Shelter Island, County of Suffolk, pursuant to the General Municipal Law 3-C, and to allow the town of Shelter Island, County of Suffolk, to adopt a town budget for A, town purposes, B, fire protection districts, C, any other special or improvement district governing the town board for the fiscal year 2023. It requires a real, is that right?
24.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, that's 2024. That requires a real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit as defined by General Municipal Law 3-C. Section 2 is the authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to subdivision 5 of the General Municipal Law 3-C, which expressly authorizes the town board to override the tax levy limit by the adoption of a local law approved by a vote of 60% of the town board. Section 3, the tax levy limit override. The town board of the town of Shelter Island, the county of Suffolk, is hereby authorized to adopt the budget for the fiscal year 2024 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the limit specified in General Municipal Law 3-C. Section 4, survivability, and any clause, sentence, paragraph, or subdivision or part of this local law or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstance shall be adjusted by any court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid or unconstitutional. Such order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, but shall be confined to its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation or circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. And section 5 is the effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's make a motion. We close the special meeting and we go into an executive session to discuss contract negotiations. Second,